Video games, one of my lifelong passions. And I guess Disney must have heard me because they decided they were going to make an entire animated film based off video games, which is the film we're going to be talking about today. A film which, believe it or not, has roots since 1980. Yes, there was going to be a video game Disney movie for a very, very long time. It took it to 2012 to make it, but apparently went through multiple different titles until finally coming to Wreck-It Ralph. The original title was going to be High Score, then Retro Ralph or something like that. Eventually, it became the film we're going to talk about today. Most of the production history behind the film was just getting the rights to certain video game characters. Early on, it was decided that they would need to have actual background video game characters from real-life studios in order to make it seem more authentic. However, the use of them became less and less to make it more focused on newer characters that they don't have baggage between. That includes cutting Mario. He's not in the film. He was supposed to be, but they cut him because too much baggage behind him, I guess, even though he doesn't have much of a storyline. But Bowser's there, so that's cool. And technically, there are Warner Brothers characters in a Disney film. That's only happened one other time, because Mortal Kombat is owned by Warner Brothers now. Also, it is kind of crazy that they reference a thing from Mortal Kombat that it created the M rating in ESRB entirely in a movie that's rated PG. Kind of funny if you think about it, but I guess it's okay because it's a zombie heart. So of course 12-year-old me wanted to see this film, not because it was based on video games, but because the trailer had one specific character in the movie. And that was the dinosaur from Meet the Robinsons, who appears in the background of this shot. Actually, that's not the character I'm talking about.
Your game, stay safe, stay alert, and whatever you do, don't die. Because if you die outside your own game, you don't regenerate, ever. Game over.
So my reaction in 2012, me being a 12-year-old kid, and seeing a commercial for a movie based off video games and seeing my all-time favorite character there, I kinda shit my pants. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. I freaked the fuck out. I was super hyped for this film just because Sonic's in it. He's barely in the movie. That's the most he's in it, other than some background shots. But yes, I went to see this film purely because Sonic is in it. That's how much of a fanboy I was. Still am. And it didn't even bother me at the time that half the film just takes place in Candyland, and that's pretty much the rest of the plot. This film is by far not a perfect film. However, this film, for the time it came out, was a really special movie for me. And so even if it isn't technically the best Disney film, it holds a special place in my heart where I kind of ignore some of the obvious flaws of the film. Having a film embrace video game culture like this, for me, was a big deal. I had never seen this ever in any media other than YouTube, so it was super cool to see that. See, I was just a person who played video games. I was obsessed with the history, collecting, just learning about them. So just seeing a film which celebrates everything about it, from the arcade to every unique game, from first-person shooters to racers, I loved it. This went way outside Disney's pen playhouse. They were trying to do what Pixar was doing, essentially, making something that comes to life that isn't alive, but also embracing an entire culture of unique sub-hobby that's so weird, but it works really well. It is strange that Disney was making a film that feels like something that came out of Pixar Studios, while the same year, Pixar's making a movie that like it came out of the Disney Studios. It's like they made a bet who could do what better. Well, Disney won that easily because Brave sucked ass. Sorry, Brave fans. Is there any Brave fans out there? Wreck-It Ralph is still one of the most unique animated films I've ever seen. Its sequel's also unique, but not in a good way. But it's unique because video games, one, just having a whole group of them, it's just always going to be very unique and weird because they have so many different rules that don't apply to real-world stuff. I feel like there's some things that if you don't know anything about games might not make sense. Like, why is there like a computer screen here? Obviously, if you know anything about games, it's because it's all supposed to be the first-person shooter, and that's pretty clever to see what it actually looks like to the other character's perspective. But for a rather random person, like, what the hell does this mean? But at the same time, I guess that's why the rest of the movie is in Candyland Racing, because that's easier to explain to people. Well, yeah, so I should explain the plot of this film, because it's a very interesting one. So Fix-It Felix Jr. is an arcade game in an arcade. It's a pretty basic arcade game, based off Donkey Kong and kind of Donkey Kong Jr. based on the title. We have a guy called Ralph, or Wreck-It Ralph, who destroys a building because they moved his stomp. That poor man. He has nowhere to live, and they built a high-rise apartment above it. So yeah, Ralph's life sucks. See, he's programmed to be a bad guy, but he doesn't want to be a bad guy, and he's been stuck doing the same thing for 30 years, where everyone else has a great life, and he has a shit life, and he also looks like a hobo, which also doesn't help him very much. He decides to leave his game to find another game so he can prove that he's worthy of the affection that he so much craves from his comrades. which ends up in an arcade shooter for a short amount of time to try to get a medal, but that ends up failing. Because of the rest of the movie, he's stuck in Mario Kart, but if it was on Candyland, and yeah, that's the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is him helping out this other character who's technically a scrapped character and also a glitch in the Candyland area called Sugar Rush to get the medal back and help her win a race, and that takes up 60 to 70% of the movie. And you would have noticed this at first, but the more times you watch it, you realize this is just a weird Candyland movie. It is strange that most of the video game references pretty much go away, or in fact the one character's a glitch, and the rest of it is just replaced with candy puns. I mean, I don't mind it that much, but I would prefer to have, better balance and rather just have most of the film be dedicated to just Candyland racing, which isn't a bad concept, but the film is marketed as a video game movie, and like I said, for the most part, is to do with Candyland racing. Though I gotta say, this area does have a nice aesthetic. I mean, I do like candy. I'm a candy fiend. And I like some of the puns, like the Oreos and the Devil Dogs. Those are pretty funny. There's also a subplot where the main character, Fix-It Felix Jr., goes to find Ralph with the girl from the space shooter who is played by the woman from Glee, who has the most tragic backstory because her husband was killed on their wedding night, which is really funny. I mean, it's tragic, but the way it's set up is I love it. It's great. It's one of the great things about this movie. There's a lot of weird, crazy things happening. I actually like these characters quite a lot, and they have a very interesting dynamic because they're polar opposites. Basically, Felix here is basically like Mario, where he's a goody two-shoot character with a magic hammer. He's a very fun character, actually, and I wish there was more of him in the movie. He's really great. And his magic hammers are one of the funniest things in media. Like, why is this not used more? It's such a cool little thing to have. Alright, so those are our characters. I forgot to mention Vanellope Von Sweets is a character that is okay, but not really that great. The dynamic between her and Ralph is just okay. He seems more annoyed of her than anything else. It's kind of weird when they take their relationship in the sequel, but I don't find her character that interesting, and she's more annoying than anything else. Even though I'm not a big fan of this character, I do like the villain, which is the last Disney villain we're going to see that's actually good for a while. King Candy, or Turbo, is actually a pretty well-developed villain in the movie. He's both the obvious villain and also a twist villain at the same time, so he gets to be villainy while also being manipulative. So everything you want from a villain. He seems bad, and then he's like, maybe he's more sympathetic, and then he turns out, well, he actually was the villain, he's just being a manipulative asshole. He's also a little twist around about him, he's also another character as well. That's how you're supposed to do a villain if you're going to do a twist around them. And as a character, he gets transformed throughout the entire film. Like, first he's just a regular king, to the actual real identity, to just a monster, showcasing his actual true form in a weird way, even though it isn't his actual form. Though I can't believe he did this to Shrek.
Game over for both of you!
No. Just for me!
Ralph! Vanellope!
I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than Shrek.
That was weird. I don't remember that happening in the movie. Oh well, Shrek appeared. Wreck-It Ralph is a very weird film, but weird in the best way possible. It has a lot of interesting things, a lot of obvious flaws, but overall the film is so fun and interesting to watch that it's kind of hard not to like it. I like all the video game jokes, obviously, and even the Candyland stuff's pretty fun, even though it does take up way too much screen time. It has a nice ending that actually works pretty well with the main theming, where sometimes you don't always get what you want, but sometimes that doesn't matter as long as you get to speak out and get respect. And you can fist bump the scream, I guess. Also, this probably has one of the best end credits parts for any movie. Like, it is really good. I love these credits. I love them a lot. If you're a fan of video games, I recommend watching Wreck-It Ralph, but you probably already have. And anyone else that might think this looks a little interesting, I recommend it. It's good, though I don't say it's for everyone. This movie actually got a full theatrical sequel in 2018 called Ralph Breaks the Internet. Unfortunately, I do not recommend watching it. I will be covering it later in some marathon, and I'm not looking forward to it because I hate it. Hate it. But we'll see. Unsurprisingly, Wreck-It Ralph got a video game for the Wii, DS, and 3DS. Yeah, only Wii. And from what I heard, this game isn't very good. Yeah, you would think a movie based on video games would have a good video game tie-in, but it does not. It looks very cheap and chintzy. Really bad for Wii standards, especially for this late in the game. But yeah, Wreck-It Ralph on Wii, heard it's not very good. I haven't played it, but does it look good to you? No, it does not. Because of how low quality the Wii version is, the DS and 3DS version of the game are pretty much the same as the Wii version, so that's nice to know. anybody who wants to play them. So it's probably better on these consoles since, they're technically worse consoles hardware-wise, and the fact they can do something the same as the Wii really showcases how bad the Wii version is. For those of you who want to actually play the games from the actual movie, well, you kind of can. Fix It Felix Jr. was on the Disney website, as well as a live arcade cabinet at the Disney Quest, but unfortunately you cannot feature any of these anymore, though there is fan ROMs to actually play them, and I think I played them a long time ago, but it looks fun, because it is pretty basic. It's a basic arcade game where you fix windows. It works pretty well. Believe it or not, also on the Disney website were the other two main games, being Sugar Rush, which, as you can see here, is a basic racing game. Probably not going to beat Mario Kart anytime soon, but it is neat to actually play the racing game. And of course, the bug shooting game Heroes Duty was also available on the website. I'm sure you can play these games somehow. But yeah, these are pretty basic recreations of the games. They're not like one-to-one, but it is neat to actually be able to play these. A lot of these are able to play on the Wreck-It Ralph app game, which allows you to play different games from the series, including Fix It Felix Jr., a janky-looking candy cane jumping game, an overhead shooter version of Heroes Duty, and a racing game, not based off Sugar Rush, but the Turbo game, which we barely see in the movie, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't look like it's very good to control it, but whatever. Another very weird app was the Pac-Man and Wreck-It Ralph crossover, where you play Pac-Man, but with Wreck-It Ralph. And yeah, that's kind of it. It's kind of a strange crossover, but not the strangest video game crossover that Ralph did, and I'm not talking about Kingdom Hearts. In Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform, you can play as Ralph, for whatever reason. Strange, he's not a Sega character, but here he is with other characters. It's kind of cool, actually. I remember getting this game around the time the movie came out, being like, wow, I like to play this character. That's super cool. Yeah. There isn't that much as video game adaptations as there is Disney Park stuff. However, there is going to be a big one coming soon. In Tokyo Disneyland, there's going to be a Wreck-It Ralph shooter ride replacing Buzz Lightyear Astro Shooters, which I'm glad it's not happening in Disney World because I like that ride. I have a fondness for that ride. But Tokyo, they're replacing it. Now, I know Tokyo Disneyland, and from what I've seen, they know how to do attractions, so I'm guaranteed this ride's going to be good. Though, like I said, it's still in development. We only have this production image. Apparently, there's also this VR experience called Ralph Breaks VR, which is based off the second movie, so I guess I really shouldn't even talk about it. Who cares, because the second movie sucked. And yeah, that was everything I gotta say about Wreck-It Ralph. Here's the rankings. I put Ralph into the A tier, the 9 out of 10. My younger self would have put it in 10 out of 10, but it does have some flaws to take it back. Just the time I watched it is always going to be special to me. It's one of those things where the film probably isn't a 9, but to me it is. Just because that I really needed this movie when it came out, and it really helped me. I know it's weird to say, but just the message and morals of just like getting through stuff, even though the world hates you. Eventually, you can pull through, even though, yeah, and all that video game stuff. It was just the right movie for me at the right time. I'm sure some other people can agree with me on our film that might touch you that way, and that film did it for me. All right, and that's all I gotta say about that. So, on the villain ranking side, which I just realized we got a princess ranking, which I'll do after I'm done this segment, King Candy, or Turbo, he's pretty good. In fact, the guy who plays him, Alan Tudyk, is that how you say the name, would eventually appear in every future Disney installment as a character, sort of like their version of John Ratzenberg of Pixar. So yeah, we've had Disney characters reappear multiple times, but this one's going to be consistent every movie afterwards. So yeah, maybe I'll put him out, maybe I won't, who knows. Yeah, his character's good, and it's going to be the last villain you see ranked high, because we're either going to have bad twist villains or lack of villains. So either way, I'm not going to have a lot of characters to add to this list. But yeah, King Candy, he's pretty good. I mentioned why in the review part, so not much to say here. For the princess ranking, Vanellope von Sweets is revealed at the end of the movie to actually be a princess. Or, well, she changed herself to to a president, because I guess she likes that title better. Overall, the character is the development is Overall, the character is okay. I like some of the development she has, but overall, it's not my favorite. And honestly, I feel like she was really tainted in the second movie. Ralph was too, but I can separate that a little bit more so than her. I don't know why, but the characterization I really don't like in the second movie from either main characters. But her in particular is pretty bad. I mean, both of them really bad. But anyway, so yeah, that's why she's in the C ranking. Just not a great fan, and her voice gets a little grating. Sorry, Sarah Silverman, but your voice is kind of grating. Wreck-It Ralph does have songs in it, and we'll go over them. There's only 3 songs made for the movie. There is other songs in the movie. They're pop songs, but they are not made for the film, so I cannot count it. I can't count Celebration, alright? Even though it's a good song, Celebration is not a song made for this movie. Alright, you get it. Sugar Rush is a song that we hear very little, but there's actually a full version, which you can listen to online, which I did not know. And when you hear the full version yourself, it is very J-pop-ish. It's trying to be a J-pop Dance Revolution song, even though Sugar Rush is supposed to be a Mario Kart clone. But yeah, it is fine. It does what it's supposed to do, and that is all that matters. So we're going up to the C tier, and we get a song I didn't even know existed, Wreck-It Ralph. These are done by the same guys who made Pac-Man Fever in the 80s, which is kind of funny. It's basically that song, but it's based off Wreck-It Ralph. It's fun, and that's why it gets a C tier ranking, even though it's the first time I actually listened to it. And then, surprisingly, in B tier, When Can I See You Again? This song plays during the opening initial credit segment, and that segment I love so much. Even though it's technically more poppy than I like, it has done it not really well, so I can't diss the song. It works for what it is, so that's why I have it in the B tier. And that's all the Wreck-It Ralph songs. And I will see you in the next ranking, which is Frozen, one of the most infamous Disney movies ever made. Is it infamous? Yeah, it is. See you then.